Hi, this is Dr. Jennifer Freed, and this is In Your Element, where I feature women leaders who are up to amazing things. And through asking them elemental questions, you get to fall in love with them more. So today, it's my friend, Michaela Boehm, who is an intimacy expert, a sex expert. She's a wise woman, a good friend, and she's also very good on TV, if you've seen her in Sex, Love, and Goop. So welcome to In Your Element. Is there anything you want people to know about where to
Thank
find you?
Well, just michaelaboehm.com, which I'm sure you will, post somewhere, myname.com, and just so excited to be here and also really looking forward to when your book comes out.
Thank you. So first question is a fire question. And what gets your engine started? You know, we all need a spark to get it going. What's yours?
I'd say beauty, and beauty in the sense that I love nature and I love flowers and I love colors and texture. And so my entire, world around me is all of those things. So I just get so excited when I wake up in the morning. I have orange and magenta bedroom walls with like all these ornaments on it. And I wake up and I'm like, yeah. And I just love the fiery aspect of that as well.
Well, I see that the walls behind you represent that, and it makes my heart light up when I even see that color. So that's a spark for you and me. Okay, the next question is, when you get overexcited or anxious, what really calms you down and grounds you? That's an earth question.
Well, when I'm not traveling, right, which I'm not at the moment, I just sit down on the ground. And I do that randomly whenever it gets a bit much, which it can. I just go down on the ground. I either go on my hands and knees and drop my head and do a bit of movement, or I just lay flat on the ground. Or I also have a lot of really big rocks on property, so I can just hug a rock or hug a tree. And that typically does it for me.
Yeah, I'm glad you're sharing that wisdom, because people that talk about all this anxiety, they forget anxiety's up. Earth is down. So get down, crawl around, growl, be a lion, like your Leo self.
Yes.
Okay, next question. What is a guiding principle, like a thought you have that informs your work or your life?
I'd say there is kind of two. One is having some kind of compassion, for myself and those around me, which is not always easy. I'm not a very passionate, I should say, naturally compassionate person, in the sense that I'm like, so, underneath it, I'm compassionate, but on the surface, I'm very impatient and kind of, a bit rough sometimes. So remembering my heart and remembering the compassion that connects us all as humans is very important for me to always remember. And then the second one is just, a willingness to dive in, to just turn towards and tussle with whatever comes.
Yeah. Well, you and I share a common quality called feistiness. And I think that is a passion for living that causes some impatience and restlessness and suffering at times, because life doesn't go as quickly or as in the direction we might like. But I wouldn't change you for a minute, because your work's so important because you're passionate.
Yeah.
Okay. And then a water question is, what softens and melts your heart?
Here again, it's pretty much the animals and the flowers and the plants. And when I'm home, I have an enormous amount of dogs. We can't even say
how many. How many dogs?
6.
Wow.
Yeah, I have dogs and I foster dogs. So, like hugging a dog. And they come for hugs, and many of them, they can't get enough of like actual physical contact. So that's the thing that really softens everything immediately, being with the dogs. I also have donkeys and horses and goats and, things. So there's lots of really heart to heart, body to body interaction I get from that on a, day by day, minute by minute basis. And that really softens my heart. And when in doubt, I just have to look at an animal or a plant or a tree, and I'll calm back down and just extend my heart.
Oh my gosh, that's beautiful. So in being bold and pioneering and fiery, which is your Leo, that's your sun sign, fiery nature, how do you go about admitting a mistake?
How do I go admitting a mistake?
Yeah, how do you do it? Do you say, I'm wrong,
Yes.
I made a mistake?
Yes, a lot.
Tell us how you do it, because I will promise you this, most people I work with, that's their biggest holdback. They can't admit they're wrong.
Yeah.
Couples and life. And I know you to be a high integrity person. So I want you to tell people, how do you admit you're wrong? How do you get there? Because that's a fire thing of like, I blew it, I'm responsible.
Yeah. It's a really good question because, I have a business and teaching partner who's also a very close friend. And he is quite, let's say, forthcoming in his feedback. But he has very high integrity, and when he's right, he's able to kind of keep his own stuff out of it. So when he does that, he often says is one of your best qualities as far as he's concerned, that I can say, yeah, I was wrong. This was wrong, or I made a mistake, or I believe that, but I no longer do. And that it's an interesting thing because I have to say, right, often in the work I do, that what I believed in 10, 15 years ago, I no longer believe in. And it's evolved. I've evolved. The world has evolved. I didn't know enough. And so, but then, of course, if you've built an entire identity on that belief system, you're somewhat in trouble. And so I'm actually very happy to say, yes, I did believe that. And that was my lens. And here is how that no longer works for me. And I've realized in my work, I've given that to people and they had results, but it wasn't the full thing. I've learned this because it also allows people to release some of their dogmatic hold on things. And it allows me to release any dogmatic hold on things. And so we can all grow. Now, that's not to say that what I said is necessarily not valuable. And that's, I think, the important piece to understand is that it doesn't necessarily mean we're horrible fuck ups and everything's so disastrous because we did wrong. It's more like, well, we all grow and change. And the toys you loved with fervor as like a 10-year-old are no longer your favorite things. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just growth and evolution. So I kind of make a habit of constantly looking where it didn't go so well. And I also find that, not taking yourself that serious makes it much, much easier because, I'm not perfect by any means, but often my identity isn't necessarily wrapped up in that dogmatic belief. It's much more nuanced for me. So I can go, yeah, well, sorry. Or, and there's also something really good in apologizing because it relieves the other person of the burden of having to hold their dissonance.
Yes.
Right. And that's the thing that I appreciate the most when people do it with me is when I feel something and I know that to be such, but there's such a strong counterpole to it that I have to live in the chasm of their holding on to something and me knowing something else. So when somebody says, look, I'm sorry, it's this huge, and then you can just reconcile and move on. So I'm a big fan of saying this didn't quite work out.
Yeah, well, I admire that in you. And the next question is an air question that's super important, especially in the intimacy work you do. When you have a very positive inner voice, what does it say to you when you're having a hard time?
My positive inner voice says, look, we've been here before, right? We've been here before. You know how to do this. It's fine. And that's the nice thing is I've had some pretty, horrible things happen over the years. And so there's a part of me that goes, just relax. You know how to do this. And it's very soothing when that actually happens.
Yes, well, I think that's a cultivation of wisdom and age and doing the inner work. A friend of mine that just is recovering from a serious brain tumor, and she's in her 80s, she said, if you live long enough, everything happens. And when you have that perspective, you do have, I think, what you've cultivated, this inner voice that says, this too, we can do it. We've handled harder or worse, but I think that's a beautiful inner voice to accompany you in a time that we're in socially of so much rupture and disharmony, right?
Yeah.
Okay, final question for you, Michaela. When you say, I love you, that's a water question. What do you really mean?
Such a beautiful question. When I say I love you, what I really mean is you have my utter loyalty, which is very high in my value system, my devotion and my appreciation.
And what I love is when you say it, your whole face lights up and you look so gorgeous and feels completely aligned with who you are. So I think this has been the best thing to have you on your birthday because you are the quintessential sun in Leo because your whole work is about opening the heart. So I so appreciate you.
Yeah.
So you've been watching Michaela Boehm in The Element with Jennifer Freed, and go to jenniferfreed.com to check out my new book, A Map to Your Soul.